therapist, but there's been guys that have asked me like, what should I do about like my first date or whatever, and they've said that they wanted to make like a bigger gesture to show like and I'm always like, no,
don't.
You start small.
And you work
work your way up,
but it's not
as
even,
time goes by.
You start small, because the thing is that like he's not doing those things to impress her.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
He's doing all those things because that is genuinely how he is. That is how he decides
but
to
there
love
are
her.
some people that are just naturally big gesturers.
And that's the kind of person that I need.
Time, they might want to create like a bigger gesture, and I'm like, slow it down, homie, because that's where the baseline will be.
That's expensive.
And if you know you can't sustain that, then you better tone it down and create a different baseline.
Like,
and then every once in a while, bring it up.
What, like,
well, I will
say, first date, it's like, what is the big gesture that you're getting her flowers and taking her to a nice space?
Well, I mean,
I will say though, like, I mean, the nice gesture, for instance, like this gesture that he did, I don't really think has a lot to do with like it's like monetary value or anything like that. It's like it's the thought of him going through the trouble of finding random people to be like, hey, my wife works for like this. I really want you to give her this flower. So like that kind of goes back to like what you were saying a little bit about like why like that's never happened in like to you. But like, do you think as a girl, and then I want to know what you think as a guy, do you think that the girls are not finding men like that because girls are doing something that is warding off those type of men? Or do you think there's just a select few kind of men that do that to only specific kind of women? Or do you just think that like you kind of just gotta play the fair luck game and be like, well, if you just so happen to find somebody who does that, you're kind of just lucky?
I mean, I think it's both. I think it's what I was saying earlier, where I was like, I don't think those men are like everywhere, and I don't. Don't you can come for me. I don't give a fuck. Yo, don't be doing nice shit for your significant others. But it's kind of like the same. It's like, okay, fine. They're so hard to find. They are so rare. That doesn't mean I need to date somebody who's still not. You know what I mean? I feel like it goes back to just like the fact that like. Because obviously I'm joking about that, but I don't know if that specifically is necessarily what I would want. Everybody has like their different expectations, you know, and like there might be different gestures that for some people might mean a lot, and for others that might be like, oh, sure, like that's really nice, but like that's not necessarily what's like pulling at my heartstrings. But the point is like, we do have expectations, and you should have expectations.
You absolutely should.
You should have expectations for how you should be treated in a relationship, and that might look different depending on who you're dating, but the expectations shouldn't be different. You know what I mean? Like, that shouldn't be
that's
fucking
where,
different.
That's where...
And that's where I'm like, that's fine. They are really hard to find, but I would rather be alone then. You know what I mean? Like, if you cannot even go to the trouble of... I set my TRs the other way. Cut. If you cannot even go through the trouble of, like, being like, I just want to do something nice for them. Whatever it is. I just want... Like, I love this person so much. Like, I want to do something nice for... Like, I don't...
And that's so funny that you say that. I was just talking to 2 points. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and we were texting. And I was asking her about her relationship. I was like, hey, how's everything going? How's your relationship going? And she was like, oh, everything's fine. Like, blah, blah, blah. And she said, this is her words. She said, he's just not big on romance. And I was like, oh, so you have reservations about it all? And she was like, oh, no, not at all. Like, he's very fun. He's outgoing. Everybody likes him. He's a very nice guy. I know his intentions. Like, I know, you know what I mean? I would rather not have romance and have all of those things than have romance and have like these big gestures. Yeah. And this is what she meant. She didn't like go on a rant, right? But like essentially the message was, I would rather not have the romance and have stability, know how he is and know that like he's just not, he doesn't think in that way, but I know he loves me, as opposed to like somebody that may be wildly inconsistent on the foundational things and like brings me like these big gestures that I can just that are just for like for me to
Yeah,
post
that's called
online or
toxic.
whatever.
Right.
You know
That's
what I mean?
called toxic.
And which was just kind of a little bit different than what you're saying, only in the sense that like she does have expectations and she probably would like the romance, but she's not banking on the romance.
And I feel like she like,
you know what I'm saying?
I have to assume then that also it's because like he just shows like he still shows her that he like loves her and really likes her and appreciates
In
her
a
and she's
different
special
kind of way.
in a different way,
Yeah.
and she's able to like perceive that and be like,
And
this
also
is just
her-
how he shows it.
And also her
But-
history specifically probably, or actually, you know, not probably, without disclosing who this person is, her history with relationships has been tumultuous, to say at best. So at this point, she can recognize like, this is genuine affection and I need to preserve this because people don't feel this way for people often.
Yeah.
People might have infatuation, or people might have like an obsession, or like a thing where they're like, oh my God, like this person's like, you know what I mean? But like it can borderline unhealthy really quickly. So then she's like, this kind of affection, this supportiveness and this like thing that we have here is, to say that to me 6 years ago and I would have rejected it, but say that to me now and I'm like, this is the relationship that I really need, or that I want, or whatever it is. So to answer that question, for me it comes a little bit, it's a lot more complicated than just saying yes there are those men, and no, they're like women are doing something specifically that are warding those men off. Dating culture nowadays, I haven't like fully thought about this, but it does seem to have pockets. Like you do seem to have pockets of how to date in certain atmospheres and certain things. Example: socialites date very differently than people that are just like met at work or whatever, you know, and are just going to like random bars or like whatever, this and that. They date very differently because their set of expectations are more on the superficial side in terms of like presence and in terms of like standards and or what's the word I'm looking for? Status, right?
Sure.
Because like these are the people that other people might call shallow. Might say like, oh, you're not wearing Dior, like get away from me, or like you know what I mean? Like these are people that really do think like that, and they have expectations. I think that you should absolutely have expectations. Yeah. But I don't think that I think you as a person should be aware enough that that out of all of your expectations, you should probably tier them or rank them in order of importance. Well, and realize like which expectations could you do without. Because if somebody matches a great list of criteria and you're going to off them or you're going to X them out because of like these things that are not necessarily like the most important things on a long-term relationship level, then you're probably fucking up there.
Well, but I was going to say also, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I do think, I don't know if that's entirely like true in the sense that like, if there's a standard, then that's the standard. You know what I mean? Sure. And like, there might be things that are not like a deal breaker for me, but having a standard and having deal breakers are different. You know what I mean? Like now I'm like, if you don't meet the standard, then no, like I don't want to do that. You know, and you might be great.
And you have absolutely every right to do that.
And stuff like that. Yeah. But that like, that's and like, obviously it's like you said too, like it kind of depends on like what your standard is like based on. Right. But I feel like a big part of that too is like what everybody, like how each person also like views relationships 100%. And like what they want from them, because there are people that really want to be in a relationship and they want to be in a relationship and find the person that they're gonna marry and then be married for the rest of their lives.
100%.
And so that's what they're looking for. And I think in a way like they're also just kind of trying to find not the perfect match, but just the match that is like
close enough to settle
to like make that a reality. And so I was saying, like, I'm not like that. Like, I'm not expecting, like, that's not like a dream of mine. So then I'm probably more willing to be like, oh, well, if I don't like that, then I don't have
absolutely.
Like,
but there's a sense of realism that has to happen in that kind of conversation, because I'll speak for myself, so I don't generalize and like make it sound like I'm like trying to be problematic here. I am self-aware of myself and the things that I have and what I'm good at and this and that. So in the times where I've been dating, I can have a blank check scenario in my mind. This is the kind of person that I want. This is the kind of person that I want to be with. She has to look like this. She has to act like this. She has to do this. She has to do that. Like I can have those kinds of expectations. But I also then have to look in the mirror and be like, are you really the kind of guy that person would really go for? And do you have the kinds of things that person would really go for?